Like we've been told, that the right to clean air, we recognize it and have recognized it decades ago as a fundamental right, which means that we recognize the fact that for any citizen, for any person, in order to live their life in a healthy manner, to live their life with dignity, this is fundamental that they get clean air. So the question is that what do we do after we've declared the rights? Well, we've gone on to look at, which is an area that I have focused on particularly, is to look at the regulator, the regulatory setup, and where are the gaps. And there are many gaps. And when you start looking at the gaps, you try to work with the regulator to sort of help them understand where their gaps are and how they should manage themselves. So, for example, in Lahore, when I was in the High Court, there were a lot of cases related to brick kilns and poultry farms. Now, one would think poultry farm is just a small farm. What's wrong with that? But poultry farms create air pollution. There is so much emission and odor that comes out of the waste over there that it became an issue, that there were a lot of litigants coming to court to say that we are not allowed to set up our poultry farm in this area or that area, or residents coming up to say that the poultry farm is just 100 meters away from our residence and we have to breathe this stenching air. In the same way, brick kilns, they are all over, they emit a lot of pollution, and yet the regulator was unable to control the pollution, which is why litigants come to court, either public interest litigation, residents of the area. But more importantly, it is the owners of these kilns or these poultry farms that are coming to court also to say that the regulator is being unfair with us and is imposing unfair regulation. So that's when you realize that for a person doing business, they also need to understand that they have to mitigate whatever the emissions and the pollution they're causing. They have to be conscious of that, and that lies in again, that's part of the job of the executive. Before it gives out licenses, it must ensure that this aspect of the matter is looked at. In the same way, judges look at cases and try to sort of carve out a relief for the person before the court. And the story continues even today. So when we were looking at cases in the Supreme Court, when it's related to floods, whether it's related to surface mining, whether it's related to deforestation, the issues are the same. It's about the way the regulator is handling the matter. So I would say in a very sort of relaxed way. There's no urgency over there. You don't feel that urgency. You don't feel that level of commitment where they realize that the air people are breathing it's toxic and it's actually a health hazard. So there is a problem there, and you try to work with them to help them develop guidelines. I can give two very interesting examples of when I was a judge in the High Court. Residents of an area came to say that right next to us there's a garbage dumping disposal site. It's right next to where we live, and every day we have to breathe that air. There are mosquitoes there, there are dogs there. It's a problem, and then you can imagine as the garbage pile becomes bigger and bigger. So the response of the government was that yes, we recognize this fact that there is a dumping site, but we're waiting for our project to sort of develop, to mature, for our funding to come in, and then we will work on it, which is a 5-year plan. So for 5 years, in their books, there was no short-term arrangement for the 5 years in which they were hoping the project will mature. So again, the question is that have you not thought about short-term arrangements? Have you not thought about what to do during the time that you're building the capacity of the garbage disposal site? And the answer was that no, we don't have a policy. So the court then nudged them in that direction. They go back and come up with a policy that will deal with the issue during the time that the ultimate project is completed. In the same way for drinking water. In the same way, in a case which involved culling of dogs. And the problem there was that the carcass was just left on the street. So again, you get the societies coming, public coming to say that it smells, it stinks, the air we breathe is very difficult. It's thick with that odor and that contamination. And again, the question was, what do the municipalities do? You want to kill the dog, which in itself is wrong as well, but you don't have an arrangement to deal with the carcass, you don't know what to do with it, then why are you killing the dog in the first case? Secondly, this problem is not attending to just the culling. What is the dog doing? You know, they're going to garbage sites. So why aren't we dealing with those, which is again a contributor? So really the answer to your question is that the jurisprudence for the judge evolves when the problems keep coming before them. And the nature and the variety of the problems that at least I have seen, that we have seen together, they show us that there is a big gap. There is a big gap where enforcement and implementation is concerned. And I would say that's probably our biggest challenge, enforcement and implementation.